Hello, how are you?
Good.
Good, good. So I was curious, how was it to work with Allie on the film, aka Gigi? So how is that experience? I know it's one thing to work with people, but it's a different thing when you work with animals. So I was curious how that experience was for you.
Well, she obviously was the, if you like, the wild card in any situation, that you could prepare the actors for any given scene, that you could, rehearse moments, and you could rehearse the actors in terms of their relationships with one another and what they were doing with certain scenes. But when you put an animal into that animal it doesn't matter. They're not really rehearsed. They're not really acting. They're actually behaving in an environment where people are pretending to be real. So, a lot of the things that we planned meticulously. So we would never show the animal Charlie outside of the wheelchair. So Charlie, the actor, never walked onto set and then sat in the wheelchair. He would always come onto set in the wheelchair, and the monkey would then be brought onto set. So the monkey, Ali, never saw him as an able-bodied individual. And in fact, it wasn't until the very end of the movie, I think he stood up at one point and the monkey went, literally looked at him and like, oh God, you can stand, because what you can't do with capuchins is, it's very, our instinct with those monkeys is to wrap your arms and hug them. But that's actually the reverse of what they feel threatened by that, and they bite. So that you cannot do that with those monkeys. It's the reverse of a dog. It's the reverse of a lot of things, because they feel like you're trapping them, right? So you, as a disabled person, they feel very comfortable with disabled people, because disabled people don't try and smother them. They can't. So they establish the landscape on you. They sit on your head. They sit on your shoulder. They sit in your lap. And they are dictating how they behave with you, not the other way around. So that became fascinating to watch, to be honest with you.
The movie features an amazing cast, and I was just curious if you were part of the casting, for the actors, because Charlie and Marcia were both fantastic, did a fantastic job. So I was wondering, when you guys were producing the film and, kind of getting this all together, if you guys had, a cast in mind, or was this something that you later on, saw them and were like, oh my gosh, they have to play these characters?
I think that you always start from the casting process of what does the movie need, right? So what does the movie need from the beginning? The movie needed a very simpatico character in the central character of the boy, a character that you can see the loss of his life, but yet he wasn't moribund or sad. He wasn't defeated by that loss. He still had an energy and a kind of, he was a young man. He had his life in front of him. And around him, what was important to create was the family, was the actual family unit. And the family unit was something that was, if you like, just vital, because the family was the thing that was most affected by what happened to him as an individual. And so when you start to do that, you start to look for really good actors who just can embody those different. So that's why Marcia, because she's a phenomenal actress, but she also has a warmth to her and a kind of maternal understanding, which is quite lovely. And she plays that conflict very well. Mm-hmm. So her and Charlie became the kind of the center of the movie, and those decisions about casting those two were the biggest decisions we made.
What was your favorite scene to direct in the movie?
Well, that day is something I wanted to really get right. The day in which he met both the monkey, but I wanted to carry on what we were talking about. I wanted to create an environment that was in people's imagination of how you could acquire or learn to work with a service animal. And that's a lie, because that doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And those places that do exist are concrete buildings with no windows and shutters, because they are demonstrated against. So there is no bucolic space in the middle of the woods where disabled people go and have an extraordinary experience. That just doesn't exist. They have to go through back doors to try and do this. And I find that, and the reason for that is because of political persecution on the idea of working with animals, because of the level of taboo that you can have by working with animals in this country. All of those research facilities are just incredibly secretive and not advertised. But I wanted to show, okay, what would it be like if this wasn't the case? And actually, so we invited, as I said, over 70 really from the local area, and they came from all over, Carolina and different states and they all turned up on that day, and they worked for a day, and they were some of them were severely disabled. I don't think there have been quite that many disabled people in any, in a movie setting ever before, to be honest with you. I don't know any other movie that had that amount of people all in wheelchairs or crutches or, and there was something that remarkable happened. And I guess because it was also, it's always difficult for people to meet other people in different forms of life, but on that day, what happened was an incredible bond that went through that community. So they, at the end of that day, formed their own Facebook groups and their own little kind of discussion groups as to wheelchairs, right? Like, oh, you've got that wheelchair. It was like there was wheelchair envy, right? There was kind of like, oh, you've got that wheelchair. It's got a little knob, but they would look at it. And that just doesn't happen where all of these people come together and they can talk and feel easy. In other words, they all felt great because they were there. But there were also terrible examples in that audience, God forbid, of, I can't remember the name of it. It was a little girl there who was terminal, and this was her, what do you call it, wish for life or something. I can't remember what the phrase is now. And her mother had brought her to this event because she wanted to be part of this. And there was no acting in that at all. That was real. And the relationship between those people who were actually living it and those people who were acting it was very special. And with the crew and the way everybody came together that day, that was a pretty remarkable setting.
Thank you.